We're back for the next step of teaching our dog how to wrap around the cone or wrap around the pole. The next step is going to be adding a name to the behavior, adding a verbal signal or a verbal cue that can either accompany or that we can use instead of the body movement. The verbal cue or a verbal signal that I want to use to ask my dog to wrap around the cone or a pole or a tree or a lamppost in a clockwise direction is going to be tick tick. So I want the dog to do what we're learning quite confidently and be able to complete the whole behavior before I add that verbal cue. Now, I'm not worried about the speed, I'm not worried about the distance from the pole or from the cone at this stage. Just I want the dog to be able to do it in one fluid movement. So let's see if Boo Boo remembers what we were doing. You ready? Yep. So he's a little bit more confident today. The little break gave him an opportunity for some latest learning. Yep. Yep. So to add the verbal signal, I'm going to do exactly what I have done before in previous repetitions, only this time, before I start, I'm going to say my verbal cue. Good boy. So treat in my right hand, tick tick. Yep. And again. Tick tick. Yep. Tick tick. Yep. So from here, to get a dog to understand that new cue completely, you're going to have to just repeat this a lot. Eventually, if you would like your dog to wrap around something simply on a voice command or a verbal cue, what you're going to do is you're going to say your verbal cue, but then delay a little bit that hand signal so that the dog has a chance to have a little think about what's to be done next. Chances are, if you have repeated it enough together, so voice command or verbal cue, and then the body movement, the dog will hear that voice cue and automatically start moving forward, at which point you can reward really well and have a little party with your dog and give them a break for the rest of the day. And so the next step after that is going to be adding a little bit of distance from that object. Take one step back. Tick tick. Yep. I'm going to take one more step back. Tick tick. Yep. Good boy. And now that he understands this distance, we can take another step back. Tick tick. Yep. And from here you can work on a variety of different things. I would probably want to work on different angles. So far we've only been working on this angle in this session. So I might want to work on this angle. Let's see if he gets it. Tick tick. Yep. He does. And I would work all around the cone, and I would pick up the cone and move it to other locations. Good boy. And I would of course introduce other objects to wrap around. Each time I introduce something new or I ask him to do something in a new environment, I will make it a little bit easier. I'll take a few steps back. Another thing you might want to work on could be adding a little bit more speed to this behavior. So for more speed, you can add an element of chase. If you have a dog who really enjoys chasing a toy, that's going to be really helpful. However, bear in mind, this movement is not necessarily something very natural, especially to certain breeds who are maybe not quite as bendy. So if you have a young dog who is still growing, or a dog who is not used to this type of movement, or a dog who is not very bendy, you're going to have to be patient and allow your dog's muscles and skeletal structure to adapt to this type of movement. So don't rush it. Best approach is lots of short, fun, upbeat sessions, and build that speed and build that tightness around the cone over a period of time. But you can, from the get-go, from the first session, start teaching the dog that you want them to wrap tightly around the cone, if that's what you want, by placing those treats close to the base of the cone. And for speed, that treat that we throw out for the dog to chase, that's also building that expectation that we're going to be running out from that wrap. So let's see what this might look like if we introduce a toy. Tick, tick. Yep. Good boy. Very good.